Okay, I'm going to talk about the parameter changes for a linear function. First thing that we have to know is this is our slope-intercept form. M is going to be your slope, and that changes your steepness and direction. If M is positive, your line is going to go up from left to right. If it's negative, it's going to go down. If it's a big number, greater than 1, it's going to make your line steeper. And if it is a fraction or a number less than 1, then it is going to make your line get flatter or closer to a horizontal line, which is 0. So also we need to know that a slope of 0 is going to be a horizontal line because I can walk on that. I can just, let's say I'm a little person here, and I can go do and walk on that. 0 slope. However, if I was a vertical line and I tried to walk on that, my little person would go and fall down and crash and burn. So this one is a no slope. There is no solution. There's no slope for a vertical line, and there is 0 slope, your slope of 0 for a horizontal line. Or we call this undefined for a vertical line. So let's look. For y equals 4x plus 2, we look at our starting point always first. So my starting point is going to be the b. So I always label m equals, b equals, so I can look and see what they are. M is your slope, which is 4. B is your starting point, which is 2. And to graph this or look at the changes of it, I'm always going to start with my starting point at 2. And then since m is 4, it's positive, so I know my line is going to go up from left to right, and it's a big number, so I know it's going to be steeper. We specifically know how steep exactly. Since it's slope, we can put that over 1, and since it's a positive 4, I can go up 4, and since it's a positive 1, I'll go to the right 1. So I go up 4 and to the right 1, and so that would be my second point, and now I can draw my line. And again, it's going up from left to right because it was positive. It's pretty steep because it's greater than 1, and my starting point was at 2. Next example, y equals negative 1/2 x minus 2. I can predict that I'm going to start at negative 2 because that's my b, and I can tell you that since this is negative, my line's going to be going down from left to right, and since it's a fraction, it's going to be pretty flat. Well, let's make sure. So I go start with my b at negative 2, and then I use my slope. Since this is negative, I assign it to the top number, and I'm going to go down 1 and to the right 2 because 1 is negative, that's why I go down. 2 is positive, that's why I go to the right. So I'm going to go down 1 and to the right 2. And so this would be where my other point is. I can connect them, add my arrows, and that's my line. And sure enough, I was right. Since it started at negative 2, I knew that it's negative, so it's going down from left to right. And it's a fraction, so it was a pretty flat line. Next example, y equals 3/4 x minus 5. Always your starting point. We're going to start at negative 5 because that's what b is. And now I use my slope. It's a fraction and it's positive, so I know it's going to be pretty flat and it's going to be going up from left to right. Well, since this is a positive 3, I'm going to go up 3 and then to the right 4. So I'm going to go up 3 to the right 4, and that would be where my other line is, or my other point. Okay, what happened here? What happened from the graph A to graph B? What were the changes? Well, I always start with my starting point. On the first graph, my starting point was a positive number. On my second graph, it was a negative number. So I can tell you that it translated down. It went down. I don't know specifically how many units here. You could just count them out and see how many units, but since I didn't have numbers on this graph, I can't see. But I did get to see that my steepness stayed the same. So my slope, or my m, would have stayed the same, and my b, the number being added or subtracted to the equation, would have changed, and it moved my graph down. Over here, I'm able to see that my starting point stayed the same, so I always start there. So my b did not change. What changed was my m. On the first graph, it was going down, which means that my m would have been negative. And on my second graph, my slope is going down, meaning my m would have been positive. So my m had to go from a negative number to a positive number. Okay, what happens to this equation if I multiplied the m by negative 2? What would happen to my graph? Well, that would make me a new graph. I'm going to multiply my m by negative 2, which would give me a negative 6x plus 4. So what does that change to my graph? Well, on the first graph, it was positive, so it was going up from left to right, and it was 3, so it was pretty steep. Over here, it changed to a negative, so that changed my graph from going up to going down, and since this number got bigger, it made it more steep. But my starting point did stay the same. Okay, what would happen if I multiply the b by -2? That would change my graph to be y equals, m stays the same. If I'd multiply b by -2, I'd get a -10. So my first one started at +5. My second graph started at -10. So that translated down 15 units. So remember, when we're talking about parameter changes, m changes the direction and the steepness, b changes your starting point.